Greetings YouTube, Skill Incarnate bringing you all the latest indie gaming goodness. Welcome back as we look at another indie game. This time I'm reviewing the remaster of one of the finest first-person shooters ever made, Crysis. When it was released, Crysis redefined the boundaries of the first-person shooter, as it was a game with graphics that were superior to virtually every other game on the market. Crysis was the first game to use the Crytek engine, which started off as a tech demo for Nvidia graphics cards and was so successful it's still being used by games today. The visual quality of Crysis was and still is in some ways the standard by which many games are measured. Unfortunately, the game when released was ahead of its time, as only the most expensive of PCs had a hope of running the game at maximum quality. So many people, including me, weren't able to play the game until many years later when hardware was more affordable. Crytek have returned with a completely remastered version of Crysis, lovingly restored for a new generation, and it has a pretty positive reception from gamers. I was eager to return to the game to see whether the remaster lives up to my expectations. Crysis takes place in the near future on the fictional island of Lingshan. A distress call is received from an American research team who are working on a secret project. This prompts the deployment of Raptor Team, an elite strike force who are responsible for rescuing the researchers. However, what the team doesn't know is that the exercise was an excuse to test out an experimental new weapon, the nanosuits. This cutting-edge armour turns a single soldier into a one-man army, providing cloaking technology as well as enhanced speed and strength. The operation goes south when Raptor Team is engaged by the Korean army, who is searching the island for their own reasons. The Koreans want to capture Raptor Team in order to use their technology to improve their own nanosuits, which they are also field testing on the island. As a war between the Korean army and Raptor Team intensifies, both forces come under attack from an army of alien beings, who possess technology far superior to even Raptor Team's nanosuits. Crysis was a showcase for Crytek's new engine, so the story of Crysis is a weaker element of the game, acting as a vehicle to drive the conflict. In fact, it wasn't until the sequels where the developers started to flesh out the story, giving a name to the alien invaders, explaining how they came to Earth, and explaining the link between them and the nanosuits. The player controls Nomad, a new member of Raptor Team and owner of one of the new nanosuits. You begin the rescue on the shores of Lingshan, finding your way through the Korean army who vastly outnumber you. Thankfully, your suit gives you a variety of abilities to turn the tide. Do you like to solve your problems by sharing some lead? Then engage armor mode and make yourself bulletproof while you shower enemies with bullets. Perhaps you like the personal touch? Then engage strength mode and turn household objects into deadly missiles. Perhaps you're a more sophisticated player like myself who prefers a little bit of stealth. Then you'll love the cloaking ability. Combining this with a silenced weapon and some good cover will allow a clever player to kill the Korean soldiers before they can even work out where you are. Finally, if an attack goes wrong, you can always engage speed mode and flee to safety. All the powers have useful applications, however they rely on your suit's internal energy level, which you'll need to monitor in battle. This adds an extra layer of challenge, but it never felt unfair due to the suit battery charging after a few seconds. Your nanosuit does make you more durable than your enemies, but won't protect you from explosives or massed fire. When I first played Crysis, I thought the player having access to a nanosuit from the beginning of the game would cause some balance issues. The enemy is after all only human. Thankfully, Crysis prevents this with some impressive enemy AI. Enemy soldiers work in squads, patrolling the area as they search for Raptor Team. Soldiers will spot the player, alert their colleagues and try to charge you as a group. If under fire, they will seek cover or reposition to flank. Enemies will take advantage of the destructible environment, deploying explosives to level buildings, destroy your cover, and flush you out. Squads are often backed up by armoured vehicles or patrol boats which deliver reinforcements. Later in the game, the Koreans become more aggressive and attack using choppers, tanks, armoured vehicles, and eventually their own nano soldiers, equipped with tools and weapons to counter your own nanotech. Because I was playing on the hardest difficulty, I quickly adopted a stealth approach, using the cover of the jungle and my cloaking ability to set up ambushes or pick off soldiers with silenced weapons. The nano soldiers became easy prey as I learned to decloak, open fire and then recloak before they could work out where I was. Crysis has some spectacular set pieces to showcase its graphics. The player gets their first view of the island as they parachute to the beach, which is shown in stunning detail. The jungles of Lingshan are equally impressive, with photorealistic trees and bushes. As you press to the centre of the island, you'll command a fleet of tanks leaving devastated jungle in your wake. And then you'll duel against nanosuit wearing elite soldiers in their headquarters. Finally, just when I mastered my suit abilities, the Ceph arrive in spectacular fashion from their hive beneath Lingshan. They are the deadliest enemies in the game due to their sheer size and firepower. It was terrifying watching them effortlessly steamroll the Korean army and then turn their attention to the US forces in the later half of the game. Most of your nanosuit abilities have little effect against them and forced me to move from a stealthy playstyle to using heavy weapons, explosives and vehicles to stand a chance. The game climaxes in a desperate retreat by the routed US forces from the island. They're pursued by a Ceph mothership, which Raptor team has to destroy using experimental weapons. The only downside was the game ended rather abruptly, leaving many unanswered questions as to the fate of some of Raptor team, the objectives of the Ceph, and the fate of the Korean army. Thankfully, the sequels filled in a lot of these details. So, do I recommend Crysis Remastered? The original game was visually stunning, and the remake does an exemplary job of updating the game for modern audiences. However, those spoiled by modern titles like Metro Last Light may find the graphics of Crysis a little less impressive. I could see several areas of the game, particularly facial textures, which haven't aged very well in comparison. And given this game is a little light on story, some players may be put off. I did also find that enemy AI could occasionally be janky, getting stuck on objects or forgetting my location. But this was only an occasional annoyance and one I've seen in many other FPS games. I urge you to give Crysis a try, especially since the sequels improve upon the experience of the first game in every way. That was it for my review of Crysis. Did you also play the original Crysis like myself? And did the remaster live up to your expectations? Let me know in the comments. I hope you'll be joining me next time, as Crytek also gave me other Crysis games to review, so I'm off to prep my nanosuit. Skill Incarnate out.